Hello Patriots, today is January 23rd and welcome to another long play format video. Today we're going to go over 3 topics as usual in a kind of informal dialogue. I'd like to see your comments down below. The first thing we're going to go over is media mischaracterization of the 2A movement and defamation and what results and what remedies we have to that. The second thing we're going to go over is the MinuteMan report system that's rolling out right now in Virginia so that you can help me report on the news immediately. And the last thing that we're going to talk about is going to be laws, the Legal Information Research Center, and just what's coming up for Virginia. In fact, I think we're going to go over that first. So let's just jump right into the bills on hand. Right now, passed in the Senate, there are only 3 firearms bills. Senate Bill 35, which allows localities to prohibit firearms at certain events. Senate Bill 70, which is your criminal background, universal background check. And Senate Bill 240, which is your red flag. None of these are any good, but they have not passed the House and they have not been signed by the governor. They are not effectual law just yet. Also, House Bill 961 has not come up into any committee in the House for discussion, and it hasn't been sent over to the Senate. There are lots of bills coming up in the House recently or soon, but that's not now, right? Tomorrow we've got a lot of bills coming up in the House. As we come over here, they're actually coming into the House committees on public safety. If we come down here and we look to what's in committee, not referred, you'll see that they've got like something like 40, well, it looks like they've got 36 bills that have been referred to and are in committee right now. Some of them may actually be in subcommittees and different things like that. You can come over here and find out whatever you want to know about that. Something else that I've seen a lot of information about online and being passed around, which is erroneous, and that is the constitutional amendment to Virginia's Constitution to extend the governor's term of service from 1 to 2 terms. Virginia has a 1-term governor. It's over in the Privileges and Elections Committee, and they'll talk about it next year, so it's not happening this year. Okay, so we've gone through a lot of information fast. There's so much stuff popping up in the Senate and the House. You've really got to be on this daily, but that should get us a good start. So if you want to look at those 3, there's 3 bills that have passed, and there's 35 or 36 in the House Committee on Public Safety, and I think 12 to 15 of them are going to be voted on tomorrow, or at least going to go into committee for discussion. And if that happens, they'll go to the floor of the Senate for their first or second readings. I think their first reading. But as you know how we go, before we jump into the main debate, if you'd like to support the channel and you like what I do, the easiest way is just to share these videos, like and subscribe. But if you feel like sending me a cup of coffee for my work in the middle of the night when it's cold, you got a jacket on and stuff like that, you're welcome to do so. It takes you to PayPal, and your efforts go to fund things like Va2A.com and me traveling around everywhere. In fact, if you didn't know, I actually do own Va2A.com. It just redirects to Va2A News. So today's topic comes from the Virginia Patriot. We've got a lot of dialogue on here, like I do with many of you guys. I try to comment when I can. And he actually has a comment about the mainstream media. And he talks about we need to sue them for slander and defamation and things along those lines. His comment goes on to talk about the education system and re-educating our children, and so parents should have use in textbooks. I'm not going to focus on any of that, but I agree with all that he said. And those types of things are outside of the scope of today's video. So what happens when a mainstream media source continues to defame and outright slander another or make liable another news outlet? Well, they get sued. Rachel Maddow is being sued for $10 million. She's being sued for comments to the organization that owns the Babylonian Bee, which is a conservative, tongue-in-cheek kind of newspaper, satire outlet. She called the owners of the Babylon Bee paid Russian agents. She made that as a statement of fact on her show, and she went off about it. You know, Rachel Maddow, if you haven't ever watched her, she's much smarter than you. She's very condescending, and you're only a little smart because you listen to her. She's objectively ugly and a bit of a jerk. I do not like her reporting at all, and that's fine. You can read this, but in a nutshell, when she called the owners of the Babylon Bee paid Russian agents, that right there is cause for defamation. She's being sued. They will likely win the case. Her lawyer actually even came out and said that nothing that she has ever stated should be taken as fact as part of her affirmative defense to the suit to her because she is a commentator. So you have to enjoy the irony. The only way this lawyer, this slimy lawyer, can defend his client is by saying that you should never have listened to her in the first place because she's just a commentator. You shouldn't take her words as fact. But she's sitting there with all of her alphabet degrees, pretending to be smarter than you. And she cries when she finds out that the Mueller report exonerated President Trump. He didn't find him guilty of doing anything, no conspiracy, no collusion. They even changed the standard. They tried to say that they couldn't exonerate him. I know I said that earlier, but you get what I'm saying. And that makes her sad. She really wants these things to be so true because she's just an egotist completely. But that's not all. You know, there's other good news. What happens? A CNN settlement with the Covington student Nick Sandmann is a win for the little guy, experts say. Now, they settled this for an undisclosed amount. Washington Post, this was a big deal. The Washington Post, the judge went back and forth, and now this has come in. The Washington Post settlement, they were asking for $250 million. I believe that's the case here as well. I think this is great. We need to hold these people accountable. But here's the thing. Here's the issue with holding news organizations accountable. The people, the owners of the Babylon Bee, just like Nick Sandmann, were defamed as an individual and could prove that they were defamed and that it impacted them some way. Other Covington students may have lawsuits as well, but the way CNN and all the outlets really smashed on Nick Sandmann put the burden of him being able to get along with his life quite squarely on his shoulders. Okay, that he marked for life forever. He'll be known as this guy that stood there and had a smirk of white privilege on his face. How stupid is that? So, yeah, they settled because he could prove that that did damage to him. So let's come on over here. We're just jumping to the Philadelphia Inquirer. White protesters in Richmond got it wrong. Limiting gun purchases is not slavery, by Solomon Jones. There's a lot of things that he's going to talk about. But check this out. I support the right to keep and bear arms, but the spectacle of a reported 22,000 people, many of them white and armed, converging on the Virginia Capitol was reminiscent of a gigantic lynch mob, and it was chilling that such a gathering took place on the only national holiday honoring a black man. Mr. Solomon Jones, racist much? That's what you took away? Your statement reveals one thing. You weren't there. There were lots of minorities represented. Black Guns Matter. There were several. I interviewed a guy from I interviewed Devin from Black Guns Matter. We'll listen to what he has to say in a second. But that's the kind of defamation, and this is not exactly defamation, but it goes to changing a national spirit and thought and idea about gun rights activists, right? About people that care about the Second Amendment. Comparing us to a lynch mob, calling out that we're white and armed, and drawing a direct dichotomy against others that aren't white and armed. That's a problem, because that is not what happened at Lobby Day. That's not the spirit that people felt at Lobby Day. Oh, and it's going to get better. We'll hear from his counterpart in just a second. Getting back to Rachel Maddow and Nick Sandmann, we're going to move on to Moms Demand Action. Now, this girl right here, her name is Courtney Champion, I believe. We'll find out. But check this out. Richmond, the leader of the local chapter of Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America, said Monday's gun rights rally and lobby day at the Virginia State Capitol is a very good example why stronger gun laws are needed in the Commonwealth. She goes on to say, many people who had planned to attend the Capitol today canceled their events because they were frightened. There were credible threats, and people that wanted to go and honor victims of gun violence were unable to do so today, said Courtney Champion, the local group lead of the Richmond chapter of Moms Demand Action. It's because extremists, many of them not even from Virginia, descended onto our Capitol today. Courtney, you got it wrong, sweetheart. You got it wrong. There were over 20, there were at least 20 to 30,000 people there. I was there. Again, you said yourself, you and your group and others did not go because of a fear of violence. No one feared violence from any of the people participating and exercising their rights. The gun owners weren't the ones anyone feared violence from. People feared violence from groups like Moms Demand Action, from groups like Black Lives Matter, from groups like Antifa, from groups like Supremacy or other supportist groups along those lines, nationalist groups. The FBI even captured people from a white supremacist group, the Base, from Canada, that were coming down to Virginia to do wrong. No one was scared of the people legally allowed to be there. That'd be like saying you're scared of the person standing behind you in line at the supermarket because they're legally allowed to be there as well, right? Why would you be afraid of that? No, you got it wrong, sweetie. You got it wrong. And because you weren't there, and because moms demand action, your group, always choose not to discuss with the people that are on the opposing side. You are in a complete echo chamber where you don't hear anything anybody else is saying. But it gets a little bit better than that. Here is actually a picture of moms demand action from the Virginia Capitol. You know, this is beautiful because it got me as well. It's not. Look at the palm trees. Okay. And this is from The Truth About Guns. This is gorgeous. And he says, the author says, hey, I'm just kidding. The above photo was actually from the Moms Demand Action event in Florida. Note the palm trees. Here's the actual turnout for yesterday's Moms Demand Action lobby day. And look, right there in the center. Do you see? There you go, Courtney. Hi again, sweetie. Nice to see you again. Got 24 people there? That's what you could muster on the 9th? That's it? That's all that you could get? Your 24 people wouldn't have even been a speck in the water at lobby day. But we'd have been happy to have you and talk to you, but you weren't there. So I find those things to be funny. But let's actually look at Moms Demand Action, and let's find out what they're saying. Richmond, Virginia. The Virginia chapter of Moms Demand Action, which includes Courtney, Mrs. Champion. Don't you love that name? I wonder if that's a pseudonym. That's too cool of a name to have. Courtney, I think you're lying there, girl. I think you're lying. Courtney Champion. Because when I looked for you, I couldn't find you anywhere. Couldn't find you on Wikipedia. I couldn't find you in Moms Demand Action. Man, I wonder how many of you guys actually hide who you are. I believe it's a lot. The Virginia chapter of Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America, part of Everytown for Gun Safety, applauded as the Virginia State Senate passing Senate Bill 240, an extreme risk bill. The bill creates a new kind of court for an extreme risk protection order, which temporarily restricts a person's access to firearms if the court finds that they pose a serious threat. Yeah, we know about this. This is great. Here's the thing. We don't need anyone to be hurt. This red flag goes across. If you find out that Courtney isn't Courtney or whatever, maybe your next door neighbor or something's worried that Courtney's got a gun. You know, didn't that happen to the director of the NRA? Didn't someone file a false report? Don't those things never happen? I'm just saying, it's possible. Just a few days after Richmond was flooded with gun extremists, people protecting the Second Amendment are gun extremists. Lawmakers have proven that they will not be scared into backing down. Lawmakers aren't scared into backing down because they're protected by immunity while they're in legislative session. They can't be arrested right now, but you don't know that. Not that you wrote this article. In November, gun safety was the #1 issue, and it's proven by a recent poll. Well, geez. I'm Hopalong Cassidy. Let's ribbit. So this is the poll that they're talking about. Majority of Virginians think gun laws should be stricter and are willing to pay more for education. A VCU poll finds. This is by VCU. Got nothing but respect for VCU. Got a lot of friends that went there. No issue. No issue with that at all. But I read that they only telephone surveyed 818 adults. I can't find any standard deviation on here. I don't see the bell curve for what they were expecting. There's no scatter plot or whisker plot joint. There's none of that. And 818 adults. It was conducted during December of 2019, which is good. But 818 adults. Okay, let's put a pin in that for a second. Virginians support stricter gun laws. A majority, 53% of Virginians, say the gun laws should be stricter. Large majorities support background checks, limits on gun ownership for those with a mental illness, and red flag laws. 84% of Virginians strongly or somewhat oppose laws to prevent mentally ill from buying guns, and 83% support making private gun show sales subject to background checks. 818. Remember, there's about 8.5 million people in Virginia. You're not even making a good 1/10,000th of a percent for the poll. And I can tell you, but I don't have to tell most of you out there, you know you can play with the numbers. And out of such a small sample set of 818, that's not even 1/10,000th of a percentage point. That's 0.0001. Seems like there's a problem, but I could be wrong. It's VCU, right? They did the poll. Let's find out. Here we are. We've got the poll. We pulled it up. Okay, let's see what it says. And I guarantee you the numbers are going to say what they want it to say, but they've twisted them. And here's a spoiler. I know it because I've already read it. You would find the same things too. You'll find some correlations, but causation and correlation don't match all the time. But the point isn't in all of the statements that they're making. All the block text, that's their conclusions. Do you want to listen to the conclusion of someone that was already biased against you in the first place? Of course not. Let's get rid of that and actually look at the math. Well, first it starts with the methodology. I love this. It tells how many people that were polled and similar kind of demographics. It's just giving the abstract of what they did. Random dialer surveys and a two-stage weighing process and all this stuff that sounds great, but here's the deal. But what's the standard deviation? That'll be important when we're actually looking at the differences in the categories as they break this down. And did they group categories in such a way as to get the information that they wanted? Could you even do that? Okay. Well, let's actually just go down here to the big questions. Okay. And we're not going to go through all of this, but this is where, when you look at this, the table of subgroup analysis, that's what you want to see. So first of all, the questions are all posed, well, with the exception of one question that should not have been phrased at all. It was whoever designed this, you had a flaw in your logic for the question, and that was about banning handgun or magazines. We'll get into that. In the states in which government workers belong to unions, do you think those unions are generally more helpful or more harmful to those states? This is the type of question that's fine. It's one thing, one topic, and what do you think? That makes sense. And I want to introduce this to you now, so as we go through, you'll see that they've got all adults in the Virginia region, Northwest, Northern Virginia, West, South Central, and Tidewater. Gender, male and female. And age, 4 different age groups. Education, high school, some college, graduate or more. Family income, 50 grand, 50 to 100, and 100 grand or more. Then race, white or minority. It doesn't matter here. They just want to know white or minority. You broke it down into 5 or 6 categories everywhere else. Why don't we have white or minority? Why don't we have something else? Why do we find out about blacks and Hispanics and Native Americans? Why not that? It just makes it a great way to make this an issue about white people versus minorities. And then the party, Democrat, Republican, Independent. Sure, I bet you those independents may have actually been broken down into different categories as well, and that could be important to know. Let's actually look at question 5. Which of the following statements comes closest to your overall view of gun laws in this country? Gun laws should be more strict or less strict? Well, the aggregate from the entire survey of 818 cases is 53% of people say they should be more strict. 30% say they should be about right, 17% say less strict, and 1% say don't know. Because of rounding, these things may not exactly add up just right. But what do we see? When we break these things down this way, Nova, 64% of the people from Nova, that was 255 people from Northern Virginia, they are likely to already be more liberal-leaning in the first place. West, South, Tidewater, okay, let's keep it moving down. Male and female. In this particular part, females think the gun laws should be stricter. Why is that? Then we have the category broken down across the board, 18 to 34, 35 to 44. Those categories, at least 50% or better, almost 60% in all of those categories say they should be stricter. Wait a minute. High school grads, some college, or college graduates. College graduates tend to be more liberal. Sure, some college and things like that, 48, 64, but even 46%. All of this has to do with indoctrination. The kids in the school are taught you shouldn't have guns and they're bad, right? The guys going to college are indoctrinated into a more liberal kind of mindset or progressive mindset, right? That makes a lot of sense, right? Why they would be more for it. And then we get over here to who's making what money. Under $50,000. So the guy working at McDonald's, he thinks that you should have stricter gun laws. 54% of them say, yeah, probably. Maybe not the guy at McDonald's, but you get my point. 50 to 100,000, 100,000 or more. These are your college level guys, especially at the 100 grand mark, 65%. And then we come over here to white and minority. 43% of whites and 74% of minorities think that it should be stricter. Really? Then Democrats. Here we go. 87% of Democrats think it should be more strict. 22% of Republicans and 49% of independents. What I'm saying is that when we look at that big, beautiful map of Virginia, and they tell us that they only asked 818 people, how many people did they ask from Tidewater, from Northern Virginia, from Northwest? It looks like a great number. This is not a statistically good number for us to have, and we can tell that because down here, when we're getting into 2/3 of people that make this particular income, when we're getting into 87%, when we're getting into 47 or 74%, when we're getting upwards of those, and I don't know if I said 64% of the college grads and 62% of the people in Tidewater, guys, not knowing that standard deviation before tells us a couple of things. It lets us check our work to see if there's something of interest that actually has a correlation, or if we've made a mistake in our math. We don't even know what the standard of deviation here is, which would allow us to say, hey, I think that we should look at this from a different angle. Because you will likely find that in this survey there is a curve of where everybody falls. That's the bell curve. And in that curve, about 25% fall in the middle, the two standard, 12.5% on either side of the center of the curve. That's normal. And then you get one standard deviation on either side of the curve and two standard deviations on either side of the curve or more. That's normal. But you look at those standard deviations, the one that falls way outside of where you would think the norm, and you can say that you've got a remarkable result. We've got some remarkable results that require investigation that we don't have the tools to prove. And because beautiful old Moms Demand Action is using this, we probably know what that result is. The likelihood is that they were able to choose the demographics of what they wanted, and they didn't poll the guys over here, right? 100 and something people? No. We've seen the Keep Va2A map. We've seen the map. The map's green, baby. Okay? These towns have voted for sanctuary cities. The polling information may be correct, but the presentation is felonious. It's wrong. It's erroneous. They're lying to us. Don't you love it? So guys, I want to jump back over here. When we looked at that report, we saw that there was a big disparity between white and non-white, right? The white and minority. And that goes along with a lot of this mischaracterization. You know, you can use statistics for good or evil, right? So you can really go ahead and change what someone thinks about someone by how you present this stuff. And we look at what Solomon Jones wrote, his article, definitely building a divide. Well, that's nothing. That's nothing compared to this gentleman right here. This guy, look at William Bunch, a bunch of nuts, really. William Bunch. He doesn't even look like he takes a good on his jaw, I can tell you. Call Richmond's MLK Day gun rally what it is, an outbreak of terrorism on American soil. My goodness. If you want to talk about defamation, if you want to talk about like clickbait grabbing titles, if you want to talk about hyperbole, this is ridiculous. Will, dumbass, we've got the right to keep and bear arms everywhere. Even in Virginia, we have a right to carry firearms openly. There's nothing terroristic about exercising your right. Cheese and crackers, man. This guy goes on. He takes it straight to the hilt. On a day set aside to celebrate a fighter for peace for all human rights who was shot and killed in Memphis on April 4th, 1968 with a .30-06 Remington rifle. Beautifully, not a rifle banned by the new laws coming down in Virginia. Our social media streams were filled with middle-aged white men in absurd camouflage wearing helmets or flak jackets, some legally covering their faces with masks, with assault rifles or grenade launchers and weaponry to shoot down a small aircraft strapped to their bodies. That's this guy. Here's the problem. That mischaracterization, although it defames all Americans that care about gun rights, can't be necessarily brought back to him directly because he's not calling out or singling out any individual person. This is an opinion piece. It's what he's got to say. I don't like it any more than you do. There are only a few things that we can do in order to correct this. Conservatives, people that believe in live and let live, don't usually go around starting fights. It's not the way it works. This guy is now pooping in our lawn. So what do you do about it? You criticize him. You call him out. That's it. My father told me something growing up a long time ago, and I think it stood very strongly with me. If you can't stand in front of your weaknesses, you should not hide behind your strengths. This guy's hiding behind a keyboard, right? He was not there, right? He has a bias he didn't see, he did not participate. Now he walked across the street and let his dog poop in the garden. We should hit him up with some comments. Pause right here and send those pretty pictures free. Use all the photos I got over on my Va2A page and let them see. His voice is telling you that you're worthless, that you're a white supremacist, that you're no good. And he's from Philadelphia. Go figure. Isn't the Liberty Bell in Philadelphia? I digress. He makes it a white issue. Strange. I was there, bunch of nuts. I was there. And I talked to an organizer, Devin, who's been going around all over the United States talking about guns.
Let's head back over to Devin. It's time to ask him some very poignant questions, too.
Tell me a little bit about what you might think of minority communities and gun rights, but they don't want to go because they feel like it's a white
like they're
issue.
Marginalized. They are incorrect if they say that this is a white issue, because throughout American history, black people have had to use firearms and any type of weapon to liberate ourselves, from Civil War and slavery to before that, when we had to break out of slavery, to the civil rights movement with Malcolm X, with Stokely Carmichael, with even before him, Bass Reeves, who killed his slave owner and ran out west. So this is more of a black issue than anything, because the first gun control laws were to restrict black people from owning guns. So if anything, this is a black issue.
So a lot of people have...
Now, I'd take it a little step further. We're talking about some poignant things. There were lots of minorities. There are lots of minorities, not only in race. Okay, there were lots of people as far as orientations and religions that were here in support of gun rights. But I took it a step further, because we've got a problem in Norfolk where the city council refuses to hear anything about the Second Amendment rally and Second Amendment sanctuary city. But here's what he has to say to that.
I've actually brought up that point about black codes and black laws with gun restrictions at city council meetings in order to encourage the city council governments to file for sanctuary cities. One of them is Norfolk, which has a primarily African-American city council. They refuse to hear it, and several of the city council members have spoken out, and even about those types of comments being brought up as inappropriate.
All skin folk ain't kinfolk. So if there's a black person that is restricting you from owning your rights, to be frank, that's a house nigga. That's what you call a coon right there. Somebody who is literally trying to uphold oppression. No, we don't do that. We're about liberty and freedom.
Interesting thoughts there, isn't it? Wouldn't you say? Mr. Bunch and Mr. Solomon Jones, seems like maybe you should have a conversation with Devin here. And he's on Facebook, media, everything else. We could arrange it. When lies make the news, 3 ways to protect yourself and hold the media accountable. Because we were talking about defamation earlier, unless it's about you particularly, or you could be singled out from what someone said that actually caused an actionable thing. When it's about a group of people, it's very difficult to prove. So number 1, read beyond the headline. We got to think critically. Number 2, fact check your news, which is what I'm doing, which is what you're doing. You guys should be fact checking me. I've been spending a lot of time teaching you how to use the Virginia legislative information system in order to find out this information. I hope you use it for good, not evil, and support good journalists and criticize stories that are poorly researched and downright misleading. That's what we can do. It takes involvement, and that requires time. But let's come over here real quick to the Virginia Second Amendment news. I want to show you the MinuteMan report, and in collaboration with Va2A, we've actually got a MinuteMan reporting system up. I'd like to use the MinuteMan report as a way for you to share stories from across Virginia that I can roll into a weekly MinuteMan report. That's where we are. So right now, let's start using it and show you what to do. Share the news. Hey, if you're at a city council meeting, if you hear something and you're there, the purpose of this is on the ground reporting, grassroots stuff. Share the news with me. And what makes a good report? Make sure you got an image or video that's not blurry. We got cell phones. You don't need anything special. Your cell phone will do. Make sure that you get the details. You don't have to be a great writer. Don't worry about syntax or grammar when you submit this to me. If you're someone that just pecks with your fingers, that's fine. Use your text-to-speech in order to get it there. We can chit-chat about it later, but just give me the who, what, when, where, why, and how. Give me the date and time, and at least 1 or 2 good photos that go along with it. I prefer photo to video most of the time, unless the video is something that's especially important for some reason. And the reason for photos is it makes reporting on that easier. So if you get me 2 or 3 or 3 or 4 nice photos, then I'll have everything that I need. And then you just provide the details. I'll take care of all the editing for you. If you'd like for me to give you credit and a shout out, I will. If you'd like for me to just post it up there in my video and talk about it, I will as well. And if there's anything that I can follow up on, I will. So if it has to do with a Clark or a county meeting or something and I can follow up on it with someone in person, I'll make those calls for you. If you help me do that, I'll help you bring you and get the news out about what's happening in your area. Sharing the report is easy. Just click here to submit a MinuteMan report. Now I'm going to show you 2 things. When you click this link, you're actually going to go to this upload media page. If you have not signed up for 2AC3, then it will present a sign up option for you. You have to be a member of 2AC3, but it doesn't cost anything, privacy protection and all those things, and it's a great spot to then begin to organize. Organize your movement in your county, in your area. I'm hoping that from using 2AC3 to report news to me, that you'll be able to see that, hey, oh, here in Culpeper, there's not a 2AC3 organizer. You're not organizing for 2AC3. 2AC3 is the Second Amendment Command, Control, and Communication Center. That's what it is, right? So if you want to be directly responsible for something happening in your area, don't wait for the VCDL to assign an organizer to it. Don't wait for the GOA. Those organizations are great, but they have different goals and different everything. They've got a different ideology. Maybe you want to enact some change, and this grassroots change starts with organization. You and I all know it's difficult on Facebook to get lots of things, and things get lost and buried in posts. Here, as an organizer, once approved, then and it's not an application process. You just email Rob Sway. He's the one that's running the site, and he sets you up as an organizer. And as long as you want to do it, you can create posts and events and things like that in your area to help spread the word. Now, getting back to the MinuteMan report, currently we're working on getting the image upload ready, but if you don't, just come down here and type something. When you type it, just provide a link to your Dropbox or something there from me as well, and then I'll use that. Now, we'll go out here and clear these as I use them. Make sure that because this is a closed group, right, that whatever Dropbox link you have, you just have permission from people to use to actually view it from the link and not cruise through your whole Dropbox. Hopefully that'll be changed shortly. If in the interim you would prefer to just email me, you can do that as well at Va2A or at 1776 at va2a.news. You can email me any image that you'd like or PM me over on Facebook. But this image upload shouldn't take but a couple of days to integrate properly. But as we go forward, we'll have a great way to do just that. There's a couple of really cool things going on. Specifically, there's an AR-15 giveaway going on. If you come over here, you'll be able to check a lot of that. And then let's see. Yeah, here we go, the AR-15 giveaway. Once you become a member of 2AC3, you'll actually be brought to the 2A group, like that channel, like I'm the Va2A news group. In here, you'll see a couple of posts to help get you started, but the AR-15 giveaway, you just click on it and you'll find out all the requirements. So get yourself an AR-15. It's pretty cool. Check these requirements out. Do all the things that they got to do, and you'll be entered in for it. Guys, I've had a great time with you today. I'm Robert Ham with Virginia Second Amendment News. I'm reporting for your rights. Thank you for watching.